This is Engelman music, all right. Dog shit. Can't hear it. What do you say we get started?
Yeah, I guess why not?
Oh, no fade, baby, no fade. What's good, everybody? Welcome to the MLB Live Before Lock Show, presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. I'm Dave Loughran. With me, Adam Scherer. A little special treat today, producing today's show, Josh Engelman. And you know, Josh, before I go to Adam, let you swoop in like the voice of God, as you say. It is well, we're back to being a baller. We're back to the YSRPs, man. It feels like baseball season. Gotta get it. I forgot to say only place where you can become a baller, and chat promptly reminded me of it this morning. Adam, what's going on, man? 9-game baseball slate today. First pitch at 7:10 Eastern time.
Yeah, man, you do 2 weeks of shows with Jordan producing, and you forget how important a good producer is, and then Josh comes in and just ruins it all.
The funny thing is, Tom was the one that started doing all the crazy stuff during quarantine. I think he just, I don't know. Like, let me learn something new. 2 days later, and we've got scene switches. We've got all this cool stuff. Josh, I know you can do it. Don't think. I know you can do it. I know I'll get I could do that shit. But, anyway, we're happy to have you guys with us as always. 9 games to jump into. We'll kick it off right away with well, what are you thinking here? Should we go? We did a strategy show today. Should we go game by game? You want to hit on top pitchers? What are you thinking, Adam?
I want to go game by game.
Okay, let's go. We'll do what you want to do. I'm okay with that. I'm sure the chat is as well. Hit that thumbs up if you're just coming in the door. It helps us greatly. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that. Hit the notification bell so you always know when new content's dropping next. Detroit, Chicago White Sox. Like I said, like we said last week, it felt like whenever we'd be like, yeah, this guy does not really get strikeouts, good pitcher and all, but you can't really roster him. They would go out and just put up a monster performance. That happened to us twice in 2 days. Dallas Keuchel was the second one. 7 innings, 1 run, and 8 strikeouts against the Milwaukee Brewers. Now you've got him coming in here against the Detroit Tigers, team with one of the highest K rates in the league, but not nearly as high against lefties this year. Fair to point out, however, that, they haven't faced a lot of lefties, but Dallas Keuchel is still not somebody that I'm expecting to just completely transition his game back to like 4 years ago, Dallas Keuchel, where everyone swung at his slider out of the zone and he got a lot of strikeouts. Where do you stand on him today?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, I'm still treating it like this is Dallas Keuchel that gets a lot of ground balls, doesn't strike out a lot of guys. There is weather concerns in this game too. It looks like the only real game on the slate that has weather issues. So that's scaring me off pitching a little bit. If the weather does clear up, I think he's at least worth considering. The price tag's still reasonable. He's only 7,800 on DraftKings, and despite their ridiculously good start to the season, I refuse to believe this Tigers offense is good. But assuming the rain remains a concern, I definitely don't like Keuchel enough that I'm gonna risk it with the rain.
All right. So how concerned are you with the weather right now? I know that there's by the way, did you see what that thing was called? The storm in the Midwest that was plowing through it. It might sound crazy, but it wasn't just like a line of thunderstorms. It was and I like weather, I like storms, but this was something I'd never heard of before. It is called, oh, come on, tell me I'm gonna find it. I can't find it, Adam. But nevertheless, it was called something that I've never heard of before, and it's ripping through the Midwest right now. Is it the same system?
I'm not sure. It does look like I think it's supposed to get there later innings, so maybe you'll be okay with pitching and bats. I think I'm definitely going to play. Haven't decided what I'm doing yet with pitching.
It's called like a Durancho or something.
Oh, that sounds kind of familiar. Like yeah,
right.
I've definitely heard the word that you're trying to say before. I just don't remember what it is.
I don't know what it is, but I'm certain I saw it and I was like, huh, I've never heard them name a like storm system in the Midwest before. Derecho. Thank you. Chat coming through in the clutch. Thank you, fellas. Derecho. I'll pronounce it that way. That's what it is, and it's like really nasty. But yeah. Anyway, I'm assuming it's the same system. Spags coming in from the top ropes as well. Derecho. Everyone acting like they've all heard of it before. You guys know you heard of it today, and you just have a better memory than I do. On the other side of this one, Fulmer, and then your probable long guy is Daniel Norris. There's no real interest in Detroit Detroit pitching, I'm going to assume. Where do you stand on the Chicago White Sox bats?
Yeah, I think pretty decent spot for them. I mean, you obviously don't love bullpen games from a hitting standpoint because relievers are typically so good. But we do have them with the 5th highest top stack percentage today, a little bit over-owned probably. But Michael Fulmer, coming off of injury, is supposed to go about 3 innings. Daniel Norris certainly gives up plenty of power behind him. And you have a lot of right-handed bats in this lineup that can take advantage. So if the ownership comes down a little bit, then I'll be interested in Chicago.
All right. So, yeah, I'm looking at updated. Josh forgot to mute himself. You can hear those dogs barking.
Those were mine.
Oh, those are yours.
Yeah.
No, I only have one dog. All right. I forgot you weren't back at the apartment. Huge explosion in Baltimore today. That was wild. Yeah. Hopefully, well, you're not there. Anyway, looking at the updated top stacks, there are a few teams that I thought would be more popular than they are. Ownership share right now, you can check the top stack tool out at awesemo.com if you haven't done so yet. Your aggregate ownership on Arizona is the highest by a lot. White Sox are up there, but as you just kind of said, Adam, it's not like their top stack probability is that much lower than their ownership. It's pretty much in the same ballpark.
Yeah, it definitely looks like a team where as long as you get contrarian with a pitcher with, the stack you pair them with, you should be fine.
Okay. And we had ownership updated 3 minutes ago. So again, if you're a premium sub, everything has just recently been updated if you want to follow along. Anything else from this one that stands out to you that you really like from either side?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think there's any. I guess Nomar Mazara at 3,300 is a really cheap price point. He will have the lefty-lefty matchup against Norris, though.
All right. So if we're looking at the Mets and the Mets and the Washington Nationals, Patrick Corbin is very expensive. You're gonna be paying a premium for Corbin across the board wherever you are. He's 51 on Yahoo. He's 10-4 on DraftKings, on FanDuel. He's weighing in at 10-8, but it isn't a stellar matchup for him at all. And you have right now the Mets are very slight dogs, plus 110. Nationals minus 120 with a 4.5 run total. Mets at 4.1. Is Patrick Corbin worth paying up for in this spot? I think that's one of the bigger questions on this slate because there are some decent mid-range options. It's not a stacked day of pitching despite being 9 games. Is Corbin a pitcher we're looking to here against the Mets? You're muted.
He's the top projected pitcher on the slate for me. He is expensive, like you said, but I have him by a few points over anyone else. And then once you start getting to those guys that I have below him, there's pretty legitimate question marks about them as well. So I would like to get to Corbin, where I can. It's not the best matchup against the Mets. You do have plenty of power in this lineup, but Corbin obviously does have really good strikeout stuff. This season so far, he's struck out 30.5% of righties, 45.5% of lefties. Going back to last year, he's at a 40% strikeout percentage for lefties, 26.3 for righties. And you have a couple of lefties in here with McNeil, Conforto, and Nimmo all from the left side. Andres Jimenez as well. So a pretty balanced lineup and should be able to pick up some strikeouts here. I think Corbin looks like a good option.
Okay. And yeah, if there's one thing about Corbin that you can kind of hang your hat on is that he's not dependent on facing lefty heavy lineups. Any good lefty is going to be able to set down righties at an elite clip because teams are going to run righties out there all the time. He's striking this year, not a ton of them, but he's striking out 30% of righties. Solid number there. I'm on board. I just don't know if you need to pay that much for him. Do you think, like, if you're paying for Corbin, do you think that's going to channel you into some of the same stacks? Like earlier when I looked, ownership on teams like Detroit was pretty high because of their value and they're really cheap. I'm assuming you can still get some good stacks in with Corbin as your SP1.
Yeah, I think you should be able to. I mean, there's still typically going to be cheap one-offs. You can always, especially on two-pitcher sites, you can always roll the dice with some cheap pitching. So I think you should still be able to do it.
Okay. Steven Matz. Here's kind of an interesting case study. Somebody that struggles with right-handed power. I talked a lot about that with Jake Hari this morning on the strategy show. Struggles a lot with right-handed power. He's already allowed 5 home runs this season in 3 starts. All 5 of them have been served up to right-handed hitters. He's walked 3 batters. He struck out 3 batters in consecutive starts, which really isn't that impressive. He's got rocked on a couple occasions. Faced Atlanta, Boston, and Washington. He's $7,300 on DraftKings. You're getting him. I don't want to say you're getting him at a discount, but it's a pretty fair price on Steven Matz. I don't really think we need to talk about him that much on FanDuel, but on Yahoo, Steven Matz is priced at $35. What do you make here of Matz against the Washington team that, as far as I can see right now, is running out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 righties in the lineup? Might not be the most potent lineup, but they've got 8 righties, and the lefty is Juan Soto.
Yeah, I think I'm actually kind of surprised you're not getting more aggregate ownership on Washington right now, because they're pretty inexpensive as a stack. They are in a decent spot against Matz. He's not a high strikeout guy. He does give up some power. He did improve at holding runners, so he doesn't give up steals like he used to. But I think for a pitcher that has allowed a 206 ISO to righties since last season, that it's a pretty high upside spot for the Nats.
Okay,
I'd rather be going to their bats than to Steven Matz, I think.
Okay, to the Nats, you said, or
yeah, to the Nationals.
Oh, it sounded like you said the Mets. Okay, yeah, I agree with you. I don't. If you sprinkled a little Steven Matz in, I don't think it's crazy because he is still a decent enough pitcher at 7,300. But given his problems with the long ball, I'm more than willing to jump on board there and get some Nat stacks at a price that isn't all that crazy. 82 degrees at first pitch, very humid as well in New York. So this is definitely quality hitting weather, and I think a good spot to take advantage of. Right now, Washington ownership, Adam, only 5.8%. So they're not a particularly popular stack either. Anything else on this game?
I think that Corbin should get ownership because he's clearly the number 1 pitcher. So going to a leverage bat like Peter Alonso, I think isn't a bad idea.
All right, let's go to the next one. Down 2. This is number 3, Tampa Bay and Boston. You've got Ryan Yarborough's on the mound, pretty good left, right? Not a lot of fanfare, and rightfully so, but he's solid enough. Boston's got a 4.5 run implied total. It's actually come up throughout the day. And Ryan Brazier going for Boston, 5.1 implied total for the Rays. They're minus 126 on the money line, and the Rays bats are actually very, very cheap outside of their 1 and 2 hole hitters. What are we doing with this game? You can start wherever you want because it doesn't feel like a great game to target for pitching.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Both of these offenses are pretty decent. I think that Tampa Bay is pretty inexpensive in the middle of their order. So another stack that you can use to get to Patrick Corbin. Right now we have them as the 4th highest top stack percentage and ownership basically in line with that. So another team where, it shouldn't be too difficult to get contrarian. You have to mix in a couple of players there. But Yandy Diaz, Ji-Man Choi, Joey Wendell, Tsutsugo, all in the middle of this order are really, really inexpensive. Austin Meadows back in the lineup makes it a better overall lineup as well. So I think Tampa, it's also a positive park shift for them getting out of Tropicana. So I think they look pretty good. On the other side, Yarbrough is a decent pitcher, like you said, but there is right-handed power here. JD Martinez off to a slow start this year, but obviously has a track record of being a great hitter. Xander Bogaerts is affordable. Michael Chavis hitting 5th is another value that you can use to get the pitching or the stacks that you want.
Okay. Yeah. Yarbrough's good. He's not impervious to getting hit, but he does do a pretty good job of limiting home runs. So the one thing about Boston bats is they're a lot of them are cheaper than they're normally going to be. You're right. Martinez and a lot of these guys have really struggled. They have not produced consistently at all. They haven't produced at all on the season, but what is the Boston ownership? They're actually still, you may have mentioned, I missed it, but Boston's still getting owned at a pretty high clip. 5th highest stack ownership today on the Red Sox.
Yeah, that's Kind of surprising, I think.
Any other interest here? I don't think it's a game we need to spend much time on. For me, I like Tampa bats the most, but I agree with you that some of these Boston spots could be favorable with the platoon advantage against Ryan Yarbrough. Anything else?
No, I think that's about it.
All right, let's go to Minnesota and Milwaukee. You've got Adrian Hauser and Randy Dobnak on the mound. Jake Hari told me this morning that Dobnak was driving Ubers before he joined the Minnesota Twins, and well, he's been pretty impressive. But he has it's not going to last. He's got a 93% contact rate in the zone, 83% contact rate overall. He's getting ground balls, but he's not getting really any strikeouts. He's not missing a lot of bats. Let's start with him first against the Milwaukee Brewers. As of now, expected to be a pretty low-scoring game. 4.4 run implied total for Milwaukee, 4.2 for the Twins.
Yeah, a ton of ground balls for Dobnak. But like you said, not a lot of strikeouts. So not someone that you're looking to really in DFS, especially because he's not cheap. He's kind of in that mid-range. The Brewers do have strikeouts in their lineup, and obviously that increases the strikeout potential for Dobnak, but it also typically I like hitters in that situation where you have high strikeout guys facing a pitcher that doesn't get strikeouts. The problem is that he is so good at keeping the ball on the ground and limiting power. So kind of balances out. Justin Smoke batting cleanup, I think, is a decent one-off as a cheap bat. But overall, not too interested in the Brewers side. And then the same thing, Adrian Hauser, a pretty decent pitcher, around the 25% strikeout percentage. It is a bit of a watered-down Minnesota lineup without Josh Donaldson. But still a dangerous order. I don't hate maybe getting to some Hauser in tournaments at 8,400, but it's not a priority for me.
Yeah, Hauser's performed well. He's somebody else though that I don't really rely upon to. I don't think you're going to see, at least based on his track record, consistent strikeout numbers. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's all in all, I think this is kind of a strange game because you're not expected to see a lot of runs. Both pitchers do a pretty decent job of keeping the ball inside the park. And there's just, despite all of that, they don't really have the upside either. There are two lineups as well, though. You're right. One of them, moderately watered down without Donaldson, but all in all, these are two lineups that have a lot of pop that can win tournaments. I just don't know if that's going to be tonight. Hauser does have an 11% swinging strike rate on the season. He's done a pretty decent job of limiting contact, but I guess let me phrase it to you this way: is Adrian Hauser at 8,400? Is that a viable price point on him? He's 8,000 on FanDuel. He's $8,400 on DraftKings, and he's $39 on Yahoo. So you got to pay a little bit for him today if you're trying to get him against a pretty good Twins lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's viable as in if you're playing 150 lineups, he's a decent pitcher and you can get some, but it's not someone that I would expect to be getting to in my main lineups.
All right, what else on this one?
Not much. I think it's just kind of looking to one-offs. I mentioned Smoke being affordable. The Twins are pretty expensive. I'm not really that interested in hitting here.
Okay. Hey, if you haven't checked out Awesemo.com yet, go to Awesemo.com/join. First thing I tell everyone, scroll to the bottom. Before you even look at any of the packages, the plans, you can see basic video tutorials on all of our best, most popular tools, all of which were developed and used by Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, the #1 ranked DFS player in the world. He uses them. It's not just slapping his name on them. That's why people, including him, have had such great success, particularly in MLB this season. But when it comes to projections and ownership and top stack tools and top pitcher tools and tools for everything that we have, it goes across all sports. If these sites have contests, we've got content for it. Baseball, basketball, UFC, golf, NASCAR, hell, Korean baseball and League of Legends, all of it. We have it, or at least we did. I don't know if we're still doing Korean baseball. Might be, but I don't even know if they still have contests for that, to be honest. If they do, we still have content. It's that simple. They're really good. I believe that they are the best ones out there. And I think a lot of people would agree. You can check the testimonials, but ultimately, why not use the tools that are created and used by the best player out there? And you can get express packages for $3.95 a week. You can do weekly subscriptions, Awesemo Plus, All Access, Platinum Pass. My recommendation would just be do the month. You do a month, you get everything. Everything is included. Fantasy Cruncher is an additional add-on, but everything else is there for the first month. Go to awesemo.com/join and check all of that out. While you're at it, check our fantasy football product out. We just released it. It just launched. We have an incredible amount of awesome stuff on there. And the outside of just having Alex's projections and rankings and our boom bust tool and our sleeper tool and a ton of articles. I wrote a ton of articles, lengthy articles, put a ton of time into them as well. The stuff is all data driven. It's analytic based. It's not groupthink that you get so often in fantasy football. So check all of that out if you haven't done so yet. And if you do decide to do it, be sure to, it's $29.95. You get a free $35 credit at FFPC. So we're basically paying you not us personally, but you're getting paid $6 basically if you grab this package, draft your team, and then you get $35 credit at FFPC, which is one of the best sites out there for fantasy football drafting and leagues. Check it all out at awesemo.com. Okay, so let's keep it moving here. We got 4 down, 5 to go. Colorado and Arizona. We're going to have to spend a good amount of time on this one, Adam, because you've got Arizona right now with the highest ownership as a stack, Colorado with the second. But Colorado's top stack potential is higher than Arizona's, despite their ownership being almost half of that. Now, on the other side, Robbie Ray, who horrible matchup against Houston. They strike out never. They walk all of the time. Not only that, but they have a ton of power, even without the cheating. He is still projected for a lot of ownership on DraftKings. And that to me was somewhat surprising given what we've seen from him this year. It's hard for me to have a lot of faith in him, but people are latching onto that price point. And you know what? I'm more than willing, and I know you are too, to play guys at Coors, to play pitchers at Coors, I should say. What are you doing with Robbie Ray, though, at this price point, given that he's one of the highest projected owned pitchers?
If he were, I mean, the thing is he's so cheap and his strikeout stuff's so good. Like he can give up a couple of runs, still get you, 2.5 times his salary, and you can kind of move on with the bats he helps you get. So I think if he were like 7,500, it would start to become more of a question. At 6,300, I'm fine taking a shot on him. The only thing the ownership really does is it does make me interested in the Colorado bats, probably even a little bit more so than I already would be. So I think that, it does leveraging against a popular Ray in Coors obviously makes a lot of sense, but I'm still fine going to Robbie Ray too, just because the strikeouts give him a little bit higher floor and he should be able to pay off this cheap salary.
So he has not looked right, is just the truth. And I'm a big Robbie Ray fan. I always have been. I want to believe that he's going to figure it out. And, he's still a phenomenal strikeout pitcher. He just walks way too many batters, and he's like a 3-result pitcher: walk, strikeout, or home run. There isn't much in between. And even this year, take this year, for example, he's walking batters at a 17% clip, 17% clip. He's striking them out at 26%. So his walk rate's up. His strikeout rate is down. It's the last thing I wanted to see from Robbie Ray, especially seeing on Twitter and watching some of his appearances before the season began that he was toying with his mechanics. His swinging strike rate is down 2%. I honestly don't get the ownership here. I know he's a phenomenal strikeout pitcher, but there's nothing about him that's looked right this season. Maybe I'm on the wrong path, Adam. Maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way. It's very possible. And he's faced a couple of tough teams, but it's not like he's striking a ton of batters out and he's not walking them and he's just got tagged for some home runs and got unlucky. He's given up 6 home runs in 13 innings, but he's also walked 11 batters and struck out 17.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely hasn't looked good to start the season. There's no doubt about it. It's really just the pricing for me. Like any concerns that you have, he's still getting strikeouts. He struck out 7 3 2/3 against the Padres. He struck out 4 4 2/3 against the Dodgers, 6 in 5 innings against Houston. He got lit up in all those starts, but those are tough lineups for one. And for two, he's clearly priced for a combination of Coors and the fact that, he's not the most consistent pitcher. There's obviously no matter what his stuff and no matter what his lines had looked like in the first 3 starts, there would still be significant risk in rostering him in Coors Field. So I don't really think it changes the risk profile for me all that much. It's still just you're banking on the strikeouts being enough for him to put up a decent score.
Okay. Yeah, just one more thing too. Plate discipline numbers. A couple of things to mention. This is one thing that concerned me. It's very early, I get it, but his outside swing rate is down 10% from last year. If they stop swinging at his pitches out of the zone, it's going to get a whole lot uglier. He does have a low contact rate. There's a lot of things he does well, but if you had to guess, what do you think Robbie Ray's first pitch strike rate is?
What is it normally, like 50%?
Career 58%.
Yeah, so I would guess like 52, 51 this year.
43.9.
Whew.
It's rough, man. These are some rough numbers. You know what else is rough? John Gray on the other side. This dude's getting absolutely no work when it comes to swings and misses. Man, I'm shocked. It's funny because I know you're the same way. We both have been waiting for that John Gray season where he just puts everything together, right? And I'm willing to say it probably isn't going to come. I'm willing to give up on him. There's a couple guys I'm not giving up on yet. Kyle Gibson being one of him. We'll get to him shortly. John Gray, I get the whole Coors thing, but and it's still early in the season, Adam, and he's another guy who has had some tough matchups. He's pitched 2 of his 3 starts at home in the altitude, understandably so. But he's faced San Francisco, San Diego, and Texas. It's not exactly a murderer's row of offenses there. Granted, it's tough to get strikeouts against some of these teams, but what is going on with John Gray? Is it nothing, or should we be concerned that he's getting 7% swinging strikes and his slider isn't inducing any misses, or at least nothing close to what it used to be, which is his best pitch?
Yeah, I mean, he's still getting swinging strikes on his slider against righties, which is nice. He's at 23.5.
Nothing. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, 23.5% to righties, but shy of 9% to lefties. Still, though, you're talking about 35 sliders apiece to lefties and to righties. It's just, there's something could be wrong, but I just really don't want to read too much into it, especially because we're not talking about like a 9K John Gray where we have to decide if we're paying up for him or not. There's significant issues with pretty much every pitcher on the slate, whether it's their salary, their matchup, their talent, or some combination of all of it. So I'm still somewhat interested in Gray. I think the biggest issue that I have, and the reason why I probably won't get to much of him, is that his strikeout numbers have always been better against righties. And now you have this Diamondbacks lineup that's running out only 3 righties, and one of them, Nick Ahmed's batting 9th. So predominantly left-handed lineup here, not a bad lineup either. Plenty of guys that can do damage from the left side. I think that's enough to make me, if I'm going to one of these pitchers, kind of just prefer the cheaper one in Ray.
Okay, fair enough. What about bats? It's a night where Robbie Ray is getting, and I don't want to give everything away, but Robbie Ray, I'll tell you this much, as of now, on DraftKings specifically, is getting about like 30% of ownership, I think, which is crazy. Maybe it came down from earlier, 30%. Yeah. But you're right. There's warts with all of these pitchers. Lance McCullers, another one we'll get to shortly. The Colorado Rocky bats are immensely expensive. Okay, like this is the most expensive Arenado's been all year. He's 6,300. Trevor Story 6,100. Blackman 58. David Dahl 5,400. Yeah, they're very expensive, and it's definitely Daniel Murphy is 5,000 flat. It's pushing down their ownership a lot. Can we find ways to get there today, especially given Robbie Ray's excessive ownership?
Yeah, I'm really torn on it because normally I love slates like this where you get the top projected stack being underowned like they are, but it's going to be really tough because of the pricing, like you said, and so many of these hitters aren't good. Like you get past Story, Blackman, and Arenado, and it's really questionable. David Dahl, I think, is a good hitter, but he's also hitting 7th. Paying $4,300 for Garrett Hampson when he can get pinch hit for as soon as a righty comes in is rough. Daniel Murphy, lefty at 5K isn't really that appealing. And then you also consider that you're going to end up sacrificing a pitcher if you pay these prices, or at the very least sacrificing with the one-offs around them. And I think it's tough, especially it's not like they're not getting ownership. We still have them projected to be the second highest owned stack on the slate. It's just that we have that being lower than their chance of success, which normally I like to go to. But, I still think if you're talking about, especially the good hitters here are going to be popular enough. I kind of like the idea of staying away. But it's also, if you're getting 30% Robbie Ray, you are killing half or a third of the field if they do well. So I'm interested in seeing, how my lineups turn out. I normally would be able to say that I'm confident I'm getting to a lot of Colorado when you look at the top stack numbers. But given their pricing and given the way pitching shakes out on the slate, I'm not sure I'll get to quite as much as normal.
What about Arizona bats? Robbie Ray, I think we've spent more time on both of these pitchers than any other ones on the slate. And I believe we need to. A lot of these other pitchers don't necessarily warrant the time because either we know what we're getting from them mostly, or they're just not worth rostering today. At Coors Field, it takes time to break these guys down, Ray and Gray. Okay. You know what? Hold on. This makes more sense. I had a feeling this was going to happen, and I just want to make sure it's confirmed. Someone was kind enough in our premium Slack chat to mention the ownership update from 1 minute ago. Robbie Ray, Adam, is down to 13%.
So I think that makes Ray more appealing to roster, and it makes the Rockies less appealing because
exactly
now you're at least you're taking a huge risk by going to Ray, no question about it. But you're at least getting more reward now by not having to compete with a third of the field. And on the other side, you're giving up a lot to pay that price for the Rockies. But one of the biggest reasons to do so was to eliminate a third of the field if they do well. But now, if he's only at 13%, that becomes a little bit less appealing too. And Trevor Story, 25% owned, Hampson's at 21%. I don't know. I think this is a game where I'm going to probably roll the dice on pitching and hope for the best.
You know what? From 30% to 13 is huge. I really was not very interested in Ray if he's going to be owned by a third of the field, but now I'm at least willing to entertain that notion. That's a big drop for sure. Did you want to hit on Arizona bats a little bit more before we move on?
Right now they're projected for a lot of ownership. They are really cheap though, so I think that it's a spot I'll probably be under the field on just because there are 18 offenses on this slate. John Gray's a decent pitcher. I do like the spot more for the Arizona bats than I do for Gray. But when you just look at the pricing, like you have a $3,900 David Peralta, that should be one of the highest owned hitters on the slate. Cole Calhoun's cheap and should be in a ton of lineups. I think that you're just going to be competing with such a large percentage of the field by going to Arizona that I would probably rather just go to other ones.
Pitching ownership right now on FanDuel is super spread out. Like McCullers is up there, and then outside of that, there's not a single pitcher above 20%. I have to ask you, I think there's other ways to go here for sure, but what about Robbie Ray? He's also 6,300 on FanDuel. You only roster one there. He's 7.8%. That seems even more difficult to get to there than on FanDuel. But I did just want to point out, and you can respond to this, ownership outside of McCullers, super spread out.
Yeah, I think it's much less appealing on FanDuel because the main draw on DraftKings is the bats that it'll let you get by pairing him with a good pitcher. If you're not getting the good pitcher with him, it loses a lot of value. And then also looking at some of the other cheap pitching, you have Sean Manaea at that same price point. Not that he's in a great matchup, but he's at least not in Coors Field. You have Dustin May at like $1,200 more expensive, which shouldn't be that difficult to get to on FanDuel. So I think much less appealing on FanDuel than on DraftKings.
Agreed. And then on Yahoo, I think probably somewhere in the middle. But yeah, probably the most appealing on DraftKings. Let's talk about Texas and Seattle. You've got Kyle Gibson towing the rubber here, right-hander who I have high hopes for, and I'm still holding out that hope. And you know what, Adam? I think we might be seeing some quality signs here when it comes to Kyle Gibson. He got in a little trouble in that first game and 3 runs in the first inning, all of them unearned, however, ran his pitch count up and, not great. But when you start to look at the actual numbers, it's very early, but he's got a sub 3 xFIP, 2.96 xFIP, He struck out 28.3% of batters faced. The walks are an issue, and that's something that kind of always has been from Kyle Gibson. But he's getting a ton of ground balls, and there are definitely some quality signs here. Will it continue? I don't know. He's got a swinging strike rate only 9.2%. I'd like to see that come up. He's getting a ton of called strikes. His called plus strike percentage, called plus swinging strike percentage is way higher than his swinging strike rate, which it always is, but it like just disproportionately higher. He is going to get some ownership today. He's not that popular on FanDuel. He's very popular on DraftKings. Where are you coming in on Kyle Gibson against a Seattle team that has made life pretty easy for pitchers all season long?
It scares me. The roof is open in Texas today. So a lot of what we've seen early in the season of this park not playing well for hitters was with the roof closed. Now you have mid-90s and the roof open. So that's obviously scary. It's a downgrade for Gibson in that regard. Still a bad Seattle lineup. You still have right around a 4 implied run total. Balanced lineup in terms of lefties and righties. There's 3 lefties and 3 righties in the top 6, 5 righties, 4 lefties overall. Gibson's strikeout numbers are much better against righties than lefties. 25% against righties since last year, 20% against lefties. I think that given the context of the slate, he's a pretty decent option. Like he comes in right around 16 fantasy points for me on DraftKings at 8,600. That's one of the better plays because the pitching on this slate is just so mediocre. And a lot of the good pitchers do have tough matchups. But I do think it's at least concerning because of the roof being open. But I still, give the edge to Gibson just because Seattle does have so many strikeouts in this lineup.
Yeah, I think I'm still willing to get there. And one of the reasons is that he is getting a ton of ground balls. Now, he's given up a good amount of hard contact as well. And that's another conversation we can have. But it's just not a very good Mariners team. They have a 91 WRC plus and north of 500 plate appearances against righties this season. They're striking out at exactly 25%. They do have some speed on the base paths, but Kyle Gibson does a good job of limiting stolen bases. Now, maybe you can remember this. You and I always have a tough time remembering this. It's Chirinos. I know that, but remember we did all that digging on a show with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and was he amazing in the minors at limiting runners, or was he terrible? It was one of the other.
Yeah. So you're asking about Kiner-Falefa?
Yeah, I know he's not behind the dish.
He was great. He was great,
right? Okay. I was curious. Robinson Chirinos, I don't remember if he's good or bad at holding runners. I think he's in the middle. I think he's just average. I could look that up, but it's not a big deal. Point is,
one other thing that makes me like Gibson a bit here is, we talk a lot about actually looking at the lineup as opposed to just, grouping it by team and how they've done. There's a lot of strikeouts here. Dylan Moore strikes out up around 28%. Kyle Lewis, while he has power, is a really high K guy. It's a good lineup for strikeouts.
It is. You're not scared of JP Crawford leading off?
I am now.
What Adam means by that is every time we talk shit on somebody, they rip off a huge game. Who was it that both of us said, if this happens, who was that last week?
TJ Warren before he got like 15 blocks and steals.
Oh, was it it was basketball, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was TJ. Well, he's a points only guy.
He's scoring the pennant, and then he scored like 35 points with 15 stocks. Yeah. Which
for his entire career has been true.
Right.
Yeah, but whatever. Yeah, pretty appealing lineup here for sure. I don't know. This is not just because I like Kyle Gibson. As much as I like Kyle Gibson, I could count on 2 hands the amount of times I've rostered this guy over the past season because, he let you down more often than not. But on a night like this, where you pointed out earlier, all these pitchers have some type of defects on their resume, on their game. Kyle Gibson today, it would be the roof being open, but he's getting ground balls at 55 or so percent. I think 56%, and it's a good matchup against Seattle. Do I trust them to get run support? No, the Rangers suck. But at the same time, Justin Dunn has given up his fair share of long balls to start the season. Let's flip the page to him, Adam. 3 home runs in the first 7 innings pitched. He's walking batters at an extraordinarily high clip, more walks than strikeouts. very early, not a lot to work off of. But it is kind of crazy, just to give you both sides of this and let you put the pieces together. The Texas Rangers, so far on the year, with 306 plate appearances against righties, have a 62 WRC plus.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how bad they've been. Granted, they're not a great offense, but
Still love
you
Gallo.
look at they're better than this. Against right-handed pitching since the start of 2018, Shin-Soo Choo has a 131 WRC plus. Gallo's at 112. Nick Solak over a small samples at 108. The rest of the team is below average, but Calhoun's at 99. Ronald Guzman not in the lineup today, but he's at 99. Like, the team should be better. At the very least, 1 through 4 in this lineup should be able to produce. I really like the mini stack of Choo, Calhoun, and Gallo here against Dunn.
Yeah, big fan of Gallo today. Just immense power, maybe the best overall power bat in the league. And Justin Dunn has not shown that he can successfully limit home runs. He hasn't made a lot of appearances at the major league level, but I think in Texas, you already mentioned, with the roof open, temperatures it's probably scorching hot there.
Mid 90s, I think.
Yeah, mid 96 at first pitch. Wind blowing 11 miles per hour out to left field. Would have preferred right field, but that's okay for the lefties. Yeah, I like Texas quite a bit. What about their ownership? They're at only 6.7%, man. That's not that high.
No, it's not. I mean, the problem is that, like, full stacking them, you're going to run into some really bad bats. But
yeah,
it is good hitting conditions, and not a ton of ownership.
What do you think about like 4-3-1 stacks where your 3 bats are the Rangers?
Yeah, I love that, getting to like the 3 left-handed power bats in the lineup.
Yeah, I like that too. Texas, by the way, going to be a lot more popular on FanDuel. For anybody wondering, they have double-digit ownership right now. Double-digit ownership. I'm telling you got to get these tools. I try and give you as much as we can for free here, but you got to check these tools out. They're so helpful in trying to decipher which stacks make the most sense and which pitchers are good leverage spots and which hitters, for basketball and football too. It'll really change the way you view fantasy sports, daily fantasy sports specifically. Any interest in Seattle bats? I must ask.
I don't think Gibson's going to get enough ownership, and there's not really bats that I love here. Yeah, I'm not really interested in Seattle.
All right. So been waiting to talk about Lance McCullers because I have some theories on him. Before I do, though, I just wanted to let everybody know that Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports is our newest, and well, not newest, but we're back with Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. The partnership is in full swing, and they're giving free money out over on the site. You know them as Yahoo Sports Rewards Points. And if you've been with us for a while, it's those YSRPs. And it's the only place where you can become a baller. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Get up to $30 in YSRPs when you sign up using the code Awesemo, AWESEMO. There's attainable wins there. What I mean by that is you're not going up against 100,000 other entries. I know the allure of winning $100,000 a night is huge, no doubt. But it's also nice to know that there's legitimate opportunities to win real money and good money every night on Yahoo, and it's far more feasible for sure. So playing on smaller sites is great, and most people, you got a lot of people that will go over to these sites and they'll tell you, well, I had great success there. I love playing NFL on Yahoo. I can't wait till that comes back. But baseball and basketball, they may not be the monster prize pools, but you get $30 in YSRPs, up to $30 when you sign up. It's as good as cash to be used on the site to play and win real money. You can't beat it. Go ahead, do it. Deposit, throw a little bit of money into your account, get your $30 in YSRPs, and see if you like it. I think you will. And you'll definitely want to stick around for football as well, but get yourself warmed up with basketball and baseball. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. It's the only place where you can become a baller. Okay, Lance McCullers, Logan Webb. I'm convinced he was tipping his pitches at him. I think they said, you know what? Those cheating motherfuckers, we'll show them. Now we're going to find a way to cheat. And they found a way. No, this is completely anecdotal. I have no idea. But what is strange, and I'd love to hear you speak on this because I've exhausted all of my energy doing so. Number one, I don't know why McCullers is throwing his knuckle curve at such a lower clip than he has in every season of his career, because it was his best pitch. And I can't believe how badly that pitch has been absolutely smoked, particularly in that last game to start the season. He gets through the first 3 innings spotless against Arizona. I think he had 3 up, 3 downs, and then another easy inning, and then got rocked for 8 earned in the 4th. It's kind of strange. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was just a bad inning, but to see him go with such low usage on his favorite pitch, nobody threw the knuckle curve more than McCullers when he was healthy. And now he's throwing it almost half the time that he did before, and it's getting hammered. What do you make of that? Maybe it's just luck, maybe it's not, but it's definitely worth discussing.
Yeah, and it's weird too because he's still throwing it like 45% of the time to lefties.
Right, but before he's throwing it. Oh, I'm sorry. You're saying the lefties. My fault. Go ahead. I didn't mean that.
Yeah, he used to throw it like mid 40s to both sides of the plate. This year he's at about 18% to righties, 42% to lefties. So it's kind of weird that he's done that. The movement on the pitch, if you look on Brooks Baseball, it looks a little bit different too. It's really tough, I think, to analyze like if you would expect it to be more effective. Because normally when I look at pitch movement, like I want to kind of predict what's going to happen in the future on the pitch. It's tough with him because he has such a unique pitch. I kind of just assume that you want it to look like it has always looked, and it's getting more vertical movement than it has in the past, but it's obviously just being murdered. And so I would feel better if we were seeing it trend towards what it used to be, not whatever this new thing is. So I am really concerned there. The fastball velocity is also down between 1 and 1.5 miles per hour, which obviously isn't great news either. So I think there are legitimate reasons to be concerned. That's not to say that these guys throw bullpens in between starts. That's not to say that he didn't go to the bullpen, have a great session, figure it out, and come out and dominate a matchup that he should dominate tonight. But based on the information we have, I do think that there's legitimate reasons to be concerned about Mccullers.
So do I. And he said that he was bothered by them opening the roof. I feel like I think he said they opened it mid-game or something like that.
Yeah, they did open it it was Arizona, I believe.
It was in Arizona, yeah, which is crazy. But I don't like to get into too much strategy here because it's live before lock, and I want to give you guys as much information as we can. By the way, hit that thumbs up. It really is the easiest way that you can help support us. One click of the button. We appreciate it every time. Subscribe and hit that notification bell as well if you haven't done so yet. We're popping content out all the time here on YouTube. But Adam, interesting, just back and forth here. Ochi Blue said, McCullers got rocked, going to steer clear for a while. J. Rose said, steer clear for a while with DFS and you'll never win. Every DFS slate is a clean slate. Anything can happen. There's truth to both of those statements, right? But I do think that steering clear of a pitcher just because he got hit hard is a mistake. But if you look into a pitcher and you see something that really concerns you, there's reason to say, you know what, I'm going to go lighter on this guy, highest owned pitcher on the slate. Maybe he comes back out and he does have a great game. But in an instance like this, I don't think it's just all right. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it doesn't feel like okay, McCullers just had one bad start and everything's okay. So I think there's truth to both of those statements.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to kind of come in the middle. The biggest reason why I think that you can get away from McCullers here is while I do, excluding on Patrick Corbin, I think McCullers is the second highest projected pitcher on the slate. And I agree with the point that if you look too much into recent results, you just end up missing out on, you get caught up in a lot of noise. But just looking at the projections for pitching, like, yeah, McCullers is the second highest projected guy, and we have him getting about 36% ownership on DraftKings. Kyle Gibson projects within a point and a half at almost half the ownership. Dustin May, who we haven't gotten to, is getting similar ownership, but he's cheaper and only projects like a point and a half lower. There's a lot of guys that project like 2 times their salary, which is right around McCullers too. So I think McCullers is just getting a little bit overowned relative to the other options on the slate. So it doesn't even really have to do with what he has or hasn't done this season, even though that is legitimately concerning. It's that even excluding that, it looks like pivoting to him is a good idea, or pivoting off of him is a reasonable idea.
I agree. Yeah. And hey, look, if you like McCullers and you're a risk taker, I'm all about it. But just keep in mind that it feels like everyone is interested in taking risks with Lance McCullers tonight. You're definitely not being sneaky with a 36% on Lance McCullers on a 9-game slate. Keep that in mind. Even 30% on FanDuel as well. What are you doing with the rest of this game, Adam? I'll let you take this one because we got 2 to go, and I want to talk about Dustin May.
Be kind of tempting to go to the Giants bats with how much ownership McCullers is getting, but with the roof closed in Houston, I really just don't like it that much. I think maybe a Brandon Belt one-off. He's someone that you and I talk a lot about. If he played on a different team, he would be considered such a good hitter.
No
But
doubt.
because he plays in the worst park for hitters, he kind of goes overlooked. He has more power than people give him credit for. So I think that at 3,700 batting cleanup against a really popular pitcher who may be having some issues, Belt is a good one-off.
All right. Is that it for that?
I do like the Houston bats against Webb. I think that goes without saying.
So do I. And I did a little breakdown on today's show. People talking about, oh, they can't hit anymore. Do you know they were, well, because of the cheating, people believed
Right.
They were still top 3 in weighted on base average, ISO, and WRC plus on the road last year.
Yeah, I did kind of a deep dive into them when all the cheating stuff came out. And if you looked at their home and away stuff, like looking at things like chase percentage on pitches out of the zone and a bunch of different stuff.
That's a good deep dive. That's getting deep. Yeah, that's smart.
I don't remember the specific numbers, but I remember it not really matching the hypothesis at all that you would have if the cheating was really a big deal.
And I'm not surprised that they were better at home. Many teams are better at home than they are on the road. They were still elite away from home. So the Houston bats too. We'll close this game with this, Adam. They're not that like Bregman's very expensive, and so is Altuve. The rest of these guys are moderately affordable. And if you wanted to get Maldonado in there, not saying it's exciting, but catcher sucks all the time, and $2,900. They are a pretty stackable team today. Ownership currently coming in at 5%, so pretty low.
Yeah, I think that the ownership, is low enough where it's a good spot to get to.
All right, should we talk a little San Diego and Dodgers here?
Yep.
All right, let's start with Dustin May, because I'm not surprised that yet another Dodgers starter ends up coming out and looking impressive. He is sitting this year at 98 miles per hour on his four-seamer. His sinker's coming in at 97.8 miles per hour. He really doesn't throw a two-seamer, just very infrequently. That might just be a mischaracterization, and he doesn't throw it at all. But his cutter is throwing 35% of the time, and so sinker, cutter, and then a little bit of curve. His whiff percentage, his whiff rate this year on the cutter's 15%. That's a good number on a cut fastball, almost 15% on the curveball. He does have some good stuff, and he does throw very hard. His cutter even is a 93.5 mile per hour pitch, which you don't see all that often. Do you like Dustin May today at 77 on DraftKings seems really affordable. 75 on FanDuel seems really affordable. He's affordable on Yahoo as well, but he's not getting that much ownership. Maybe this is just an unfamiliarity thing.
We have him at 34% on DraftKings now.
Oh, so he came. Okay, he came up a lot then. Got it.
But yeah, we have him.
FanDuel, he's not very high on.
Yeah, we have him right there with McCullers now, but I like him a lot. In the minors, his strikeout stuff never was quite as high as you would expect it to be, but there's no question about the stuff, and he's really young, so it's certainly believable that he kind of would increase strikeout stuff going forward. He is throwing harder this year, like you said. I'm not sure if you saw it, but Pitching Ninja the other day posted a video of his two-seamer that it was one of the most ridiculous pitches I've ever seen as far as how fast it was.
And I went and watched it. Yeah, just absolute filth.
Yeah. So, the Padres obviously are a dangerous offense, but there are strikeouts in this lineup. You also have pretty decent pitching conditions, whereas, we talked about Kyle Gibson being in Texas with the roof open. We talked about Lance McCullers. We have no idea, kind of if there's anything wrong with him. You have like 70-degree weather in LA here, so pretty decent pitching conditions. Only a 3.5 implied run total for San Diego. I really like May.
So do I. And it's a Padres team that has a lot of pop. They have hit righties very well this season, but they've been walking pretty frequently. But there's enough strikeouts in this lineup for me to feel comfortable getting to Dustin May. Plus, I think his price point's fine. Just very quickly, because I want to get in here under the window, but May $7,500 on FanDuel, only 12% ownership. The ownership specifically on FanDuel, where it's a one pitcher site. So it will be more spread out, but it's going heavy to McCullers. And like I said, spread out elsewhere. May only at 12.9%.
Yeah, I really like May on FanDuel. Normally when we talk about these like SP2 guys on DraftKings, it's just DraftKings, but I think May is a perfectly good FanDuel play.
Okay. See if we got any questions here before we go to this next game. Man, 122 likes. You guys are doing us dirty, man. We got like 800 people in here spitting knowledge, trying to help you win some money. And do you have any interest in Dodger bats? And on the other side, Luis Perdomo opener, Cal Quantrill looks like he's going to get the nod as your long reliever through 77 pitches last time out. But what do you make of Dodger bats? I'm assuming that's where we can finish this game out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always interested in Dodgers bats just because they're so good. Luis Perdomo doesn't miss many bats. He does a decent job keeping the ball on the ground, but when you're not missing bats against how much power is in this lineup, that's obviously a concern. And then you have Quantrill coming in after him, who has never been particularly scary in the majors, especially against lefties. 207 expected ISO with a 17% strikeout percentage going back to last season. So again, it's another spot where typically these bullpen games are kind of scary for bats, but the two pitchers going, I don't think are that scary. You have a 5+ implied run total for the Dodgers. The only negative, I think, is that the hitting conditions aren't great, like we talked about for May.
Yeah, I'd say one advantage too is knowing that Perdomo and Quantrill are both righties. Maybe not as much pinch hit. Matt Beatty, if you're looking for a cheap option, 7-hole hitter, 2,600 on DraftKings. It's really not bad. Chris Taylor hasn't been the same over the past couple of years, but he's 3,300. So yes, you're going to have to pay up for the likes of Mookie and Bellinger and Max Muncy. But all in all, it's a lineup that has some cheaper bats at the bottom. Where do you stand on that with Beatty, Rios, and Smith? 20 and Taylor 3,300, 26, 27, and 39, the 6 through 9 hitters.
It's not a lineup that I really mind wrapping around at all. I mean, the problem you run into with doing that is like you're still basically you need the Dodgers to score a bunch of runs, but it not to come from the top of the order,
which is tough.
But in baseball, that's still doable, and it's not like Will Smith has power. Matt Beatty has 250 plate appearances against right-handed pitching. He has a 216 ISO. Chris Taylor, is at 176 over the last couple of years. It's not like you're giving up a lot in the way of like you're giving up a lot relative to Cody Bellinger and Mookie Betts, but relative to other hitters on the slate, you're not really giving up much.
All right, you ready to close this one out?
Yep.
LA Angels, Oakland Athletics, 9:40. By the way, we got 10 minutes, 9 minutes and 20 seconds until this slate locks. Sean Manaea, Julio Teheran, Chalk Teheran. I know you mentioned, we both did on last week's show, that we thought it was wild that he was that popular. Only threw 52 pitches, didn't get out of the third inning, gave up 2 runs, walked 2, and struck 2 out. And then Manaea on the other side is another one of those guys that's a very good pitcher. I just don't know how good he is for fantasy reasons, knowing that his K rate, swinging strike stuff, especially against this Angels team, could be lacking tonight. Take it away.
Not much interest in the pitching here. Teheran was limited his last time out, his first start of the season, as you said. Tons of power in the lineup for Oakland. And then on the other side, Manaea, I mentioned him as a guy you could use on FanDuel because he's really cheap. But on DraftKings, he's priced up, and I still would rather get to Dustin May on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Manaea is up at 8,800. He hasn't thrown more than 74 pitches in a start yet this year. I think part of that is performance related. He hasn't been very good, but also Oakland did kind of mention that they were going to be easing their pitchers in this year. So I think probably a combination of both. And then it's an Angels lineup that really doesn't strike out a lot. Fletcher, Trout, Rendon, Pujols, these are all low K guys with the platoon advantage. The only lefties in this lineup are Tommy La Stella and Shohei Ohtani for Manaea. So he's always been a pitcher I think should be better than his numbers. And if he were like 7,500 on the slate, I'd be interested in rolling the dice in tournaments. But at 8,800, I think you're kind of giving up a lot.
Are you interested in bats?
Not too. I mean, Mike Trout obviously is good, but
yes, he is.
Yeah, Trout, Rendon, I guess as like a 2-man stack works. Joe Adell batting 9th if you need like a cheap outfielder. He's one of the top hitting prospects for the Angels. But I think the 2-man Rendon Trout makes some sense. I don't know that I would go full stack with the Angels all that often. On the other side, Matt Olson I love as a one-off against Teheran, who's always struggled with left-handed power. Pretty right-handed heavy or entirely right-handed heavy lineup outside of that though.
All right. We got a couple minutes here, and then we'll head out, take a couple of questions. Overall, though, Adam, I'll ask while we wait for these to come in. Your general opinion on this slate. Do you see yourself getting a lot of these mid-range pitching options and not a ton of Corbin, or paying premiums for bats and maybe going real cheap at pitcher in some spots? What do you think you'll get the most of?
I think I normally end up getting mostly mid-range pitching. I think that'll probably be the case here too. It's not, you're not going to feel comfortable. This is definitely a slate where I think it's a good tournament slate just because there was nothing throughout that show that I really felt like I loved. Everything kind of had a but to it, and but ownership still will be concentrated because it always is, because people use projections and don't do anything to get away from the median projections. So on slates where there's a lot of stuff like that, it's always fun in tournaments, but you just kind of have to deal with the fact you're not going to be comfortable. I think I'll probably be getting to mid-range pitching, not feeling great about it, and kind of just hoping for the best.
Okay. So what we got here. I know you are putting your lineups in. Looks like it's pretty quiet, man. You might be escaping this one unscathed. Let me refresh just to make sure. We should be good to go. What's that score of the Raptors game, by the way? Kind of important to me. Met stack wins, fellas, says Ryan Stubbs. Maybe. Greg says, are people off of Houston? Well, I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain, brother. And I'm going to update this to see what we've got. So last updated top stack tool was updated, I guess, recently. Houston. Yeah. Houston on DraftKings, definitely low ownership. Definitely. I'll give you a hint. Below 5%. Yeah. Wow. FanDuel, they're below 5%. So yes, I would say people are off of Houston. Gibson and Gallo, or McCullers and Trout. I personally like Gibson and Gallo here, but McCullers and Trout, if McCullers has himself a game, if he isn't broken, right, then I like that too. That's a tough one for me, Adam. Where do you land on Gibson and Gallo or McCullers and Trout? I think in cash it would be the second one, but
yeah, it's McCullers, Trout, and cash. I think it's Gibson, Gallo in tournaments.
How do you feel about Austin Nola? He's been on a heater lately. Texas Roof Open. Depends what you're paying for him. I wouldn't roster a guy just because he's been on a heater. I do believe hot streaks exist. I just believe they're not quantifiable in terms of I can't exactly. And I don't even. He is in the lineup, right? Yeah, I know he was day to day. The problem is you never know when they're going to start. You never know when they're going to end. And he's got 3 straight multi-hit games. He's played well. He's cheap. Yeah, I guess he's got he doesn't have the platoon advantage. I don't see any need to try and force that. If you end up on him, I'm fine with it though. Let's see here. Ryan asked, do you guys have any NBA sweats going? I had a couple very sizable bets going today. Jumped on the Suns at like -4.5 right as that injury news broke. That shifted to I think 8.5. So we hit big on that. And now I got some on this Bucks game, but no, don't have any sweats for DFS going. Adam, you got any sweats going yet for NBA? Anything good?
Not that I know. I didn't before the show. I don't know what's going on right now.
Okay. How do you feel about? Here's one from Blake. How do you feel about chalky 3-man stacks in a 5-3?
It depends what your 5-man is, but in general, it's fine.
Who was the team we said? Oh, the Rangers were the ones you said you really liked that 3-man.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're particularly high owned. No, not at all. As a matter of fact. Let's see. I miss getting drunk and watching 2K Sims. I know, man. Those were a lot of fun. Still getting drunk personally, but no 2K Sims. Am I crazy for considering Robbie Ray for tournaments? No, you're a lot less crazy now that we got a new ownership run and his ownership has come down. I really wasn't huge on him. It's like 33% ownership, but I think it's reasonable to say that Robbie Ray has the strikeout upside at a discounted price to put up solid numbers. He's just, I wanted to see that ownership come down, and it came down a lot. Tamar says Michael Chavis, sleeper home run pick. Got no problem with that at all. Guy needs to wake up. So does the rest of this team. I guess that's it. Oh, Last one. Cole Calhoun versus Starling Marte in cash, Adam. And then I'll answer this one from Gage after.
Calhoun.
Who?
Calhoun.
Okay. Gage asked, do you like Bogarts tonight? Yeah, I have no issues with Bogarts at all, right? He's batting cleanup with the platoon advantage. Warm temperatures in Boston, good park for righties. There's nothing I don't like about Bogarts. His price is fine. This lineup hasn't been able to, help much. They're not knocking runs in. You're not producing a ton of RBI opportunities. And when you are, they're not finishing them off. But yeah, batting cleanup, I like him. Now, I've said I think Yarbrough's a good pitcher. He's not someone that I love to pick on, but at that price, Bogarts is more than reasonable. Yes. Steven says Ray is going to get lit up. Probably, yeah. But in tournaments, there's no problem with seeing a guy at kind of low ownership, knowing that he's got a pretty high ceiling if he can limit the walks, which is complete speculation at this point. Thank you for watching, Greg, and all of you guys. Hit that thumbs up before you head out. Red Sox explosion, back-to-back game starts for back-to-back starts against them for Yarbrough. Listen, dude, G Mega Manly, the Red Sox are always capable, and this is why you're looking at. This is why you're not just looking at what they've done lately. You want to look at ownership. You want to look at what the percentage is that they do, or that they end up being the top stack. Their top stack potential is not that high, but their ownership is also very low. They have it's nowhere near the lineup that they used to be. And I'm talking FanDuel, by the way. DraftKings way more ownership than they probably should. But on FanDuel specifically, no issues at all. It is a good team, right? Like, I shouldn't say a good team. They do have some good hitters with power. JD Martinez, Bogarts, Michael Chavis. Like that 3, 4, 5, I have no issues with. If you wanted to add a fourth in there, fine. I think I'd be happy as sticking to a 3-man stack. But all in all, there's Andrew says extremely important question. Adam, is Max Stassi juicing?
Yeah, definitely appears so.
All right. I guess that's it. Fadi said Laffy's ignoring my question. No, I'm not. I didn't even say it.
That's probably why he thinks you're ignoring it.
What's that?
You said you didn't say it. I said that's probably why he thinks you're ignoring it.
No, I didn't see his question.
Oh.
So now we say, why did Robbie Ray's ownership go down? I'm afraid I actually don't even understand that question, Fadi. The ownership just goes, you do runs, information comes out, things happen. And that's why you pay attention to ownership throughout the day. Like it changes and you want to check it closest to lock. So higher Robbie Ray ownership, not as appealing. Lower is more appealing. It's that simple. He's got a ceiling. Anyway, Adam, final thoughts before we head out of here. It's 7:10 and we are approaching first pitch right now.
Yeah, good luck. Hopefully, if you didn't feel good about your lineups going into tournaments tonight, you probably made pretty decent lineups for tournaments.
Kevin Lloyd says, I miss Green Adam. Yes, Hulk Adam was fantastic. Maybe one day he'll make a surprise appearance. Thanks to all of you for hanging out. We will see you soon. Remember to check out Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. When you do, you want to get those free $30 in YSRPs. Use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, when you sign up. Oh, and hey, follow us on Twitter. We're fun people, and we like to hang out at Laffy_D, at ShipMyMoneyDFS. Catch you back here tomorrow on MLB Live Before Lock.